Hey, we don't understand it completely. It's happened throughout history, as we see in the story of Exodus with Moses, and he was the only one that was really shown, but his face was the thing that lit up when he saw the Lord, when he saw God face to face. Now we have Moses, Elijah, and Jesus all standing there in their glory, and Jesus becomes dazzling white. On the mountaintop, Jesus was praying, and this happens. On the mountaintop, things happen, don't they? Great things can happen. If any of you have taken a youth trip anywhere, you know that some of these are mountaintop experiences for the kids. Confirmation camp, ELCA conventions, what have you. Some service projects. Kids come back just flying high, and they have all this excitement and ready to serve the world and pronounce Christ and do all these great things. And then soon afterwards, there's a little bit of a lull. You know, that's just kind of normal things. We can't stay on the mountain forever. Although some of us try to. Some of us are addicted to that excitement. We've got to have it no matter what. And sometimes when that happens, some bad things can happen. We're here for the next high, whatever that may be. We may look for the next hit somehow. We can't stay there forever, folks. There is a sense of, we go to the mountaintop and we see exactly the reality of the world around us. And that's what Jesus was all about. He had the reality from Moses and Elijah saying, you know what? This is what's going to happen. You're approaching Jerusalem for a purpose and a reason we know. And we're here to talk to you about that. To give you some comfort, I don't know what they talked about. But you had to believe that they were giving him some kind of support up there on the mountaintop. And of course, Jesus then, after all this is said and done, then he, of course, goes down the mountain and there's needs to be addressed. There's people to heal. There's people to be comforted. There's people to be included. There's people in any kind of need that Jesus can help with. That's his reality. But we find that Peter and James and John, especially Peter's the one, of course, the one who doesn't have a little barrier between mouth and brain. It just, whatever comes out, sometimes without even thinking about it. We see that. He gets so excited, as he often does, and just speaks without thinking. Let's set up some tree booths so we can capture the moment. Now, I know what you're thinking. What if Peter had a cell phone? Can you imagine? Selfie! And he'd take a selfie with all three of them up there, or he'd take a photo and somehow and post it on Facebook. This is Jesus, Elijah, and Moses. I caught it right here. I captured the moment. Sometimes that happens. You know, we think about it. We take photos of our vacations, the high parts, and then we remember them. And sometimes we can get back almost into that sense of, oh, I remember what it felt like. But it's not quite the same as actually being there and experiencing it firsthand. We can see wonderful pictures about nature and things and wish we were there and kind of get a sense, but it's not quite the same. So we have Jesus on the mountain, and Peter, James, and John at that particular moment see Jesus for who exactly he is, the Son of God. And if that's not enough, visually, they enter the cloud and they hear the voice of God, which not many people do throughout history. Some do. But they get an opportunity to not only see the Christ as he is, true self, but also hear the word of God saying, this is my son, listen to him. And they've been doing that for a while now. They've been part of this journey with Jesus for a while now, and they've seen and they've heard a lot of things. They've seen some radical things that kind of goes against the grain of what the higher priests tell us to do. If any of you are reading the NRSV Daily Bible, we're in Numbers right now. We've been through Leviticus and some of those others, and now we're all the, you know, you've got to sacrifice a calf for this or a flower for that, and there's just rule after rule after rule, and people at that time tried so hard to abide by them because they were from God, because Moses brought them down. Not only the 10 Commandments on the tablets, but I'm sure he had a scroll with a bunch of these others too that he had written down, and they were trying to follow as best they could, because then they were true disciples of God. Then they were true believers of God, and God was close to them. And now that Jesus kind of throws some of these out, and they're scratching their heads. And at this moment on the mountaintop, they see why. Because he comes from a different calling. It's not so much grounded in all the laws that have been throughout history, but the law of God, the law of the heart. The law of God that says, he may not follow the rules, people, but watch what he does. Listen to what he says. And we find that it's on their journey up that all this happens. We may not reach our mountaintop. We may not have a vision of God that these three had. We may never have that. We may be slogging in the everyday life one day after another and never really reaching that peak. And yet, even in the daily grind, we see the snapshots of Christ in our lives if we pay attention. We see that the glimmer of the Spirit of God showing through another person or an event or something in our hearts that tell us to do something that we need to do. We watched a documentary a while ago. It was on a mountain climbing expedition up K2, which is also known as Savage Mountain. It's on the border of China and Pakistan. It's the second highest mountain in the world after Everest. And yet Everest, everybody makes it to the top. Big deal, you know. I can go up in my wheelchair and get up to Everest, whatever. But K2, and now that's a challenge. As of 2009, only 302 people have made it to the peak, to the summit. It is that dangerous. They call it Savage Mountain because usually 1 out of 4 climbers dies on the ascent. What I found interesting is that they had all these expert climbers who've been doing it for their whole lives, who have climbed many, many peaks, and are experienced climbers. And you go with them on this journey up the mountain. They're watching the weather. They're watching natural events happen. They time their climb so that they're not in the middle of a snowstorm, if they can help it, or whatever you have. But what I found interesting is most of them had to turn back. The documentary, no one made it until one of them did. But all in all, the ones who climbed just so far, and they said, we better turn back. And they turned back. And they said, okay, we tried. And they went down the mountain. It wasn't the die hard, I'm going to make it if it's the last thing I do, and if I'm going to die going up this mountain. They just said, you know what, it's not worth it right now. There's another day, there's another way to do it. And I find that these climbers, as experienced as they are, they knew that it wasn't so much they wanted to get to the peak, but it was a challenge of getting there. It was a journey up the mountain. It was something they planned for years to do. And when they couldn't make it all the way up, they said, okay, well, we'll plan it for another time. And they came down and said, what can we do next time? Let's plan it for the next time. It wasn't all about the peak, although that's what they wanted. It was all about the journey for them. And they knew when to quit. They knew when to stop and turn around before it got really bad. Life is precious. Sometimes you have to take a step back, gauge your bearings, test your reality before moving on again. And I sense that this is what the disciples needed to do on a daily basis, is reflect on their realities. And of course, they had Jesus snapping them back into place again after they were going wherever they were going. And we find later that some of the disciples wouldn't follow Jesus because it was just too hard for them. They turned back and went their way. Some betrayed. Judas betrayed him. Some others didn't follow him all the way, but they were on the journey with Jesus. They got something out of it. We teach a confirmation. Well, Elaine teaches confirmation. We kind of sit there and go, be quiet, shh, quiet, listen. And you wonder, are they getting anything? Are they, with all their chattering and their little side conversations, are they understanding a word that she's saying? Are they getting any of this? And then we come back the next week, and Elaine will say, what did we talk about last week? And they'll say, we talked about this or that, the other thing. And we're all like, what? Really? You're listening? I couldn't even remember what you said. That was great. And sometimes I hold my head and I go, oh, why do we bother? They're not getting it. But we find that they are. It's here. You know, and when she asks a question, it sparks conversations. It may not be, all orderly in my hand and I'll speak, but it's causing them to think. And of course, at that age, they sometimes don't have that self-control to sit there. They have to talk about it. And we have to try to make them be quiet so we can hear one person at a time. Oh, it's exhausting. But they're getting something out of it. The disciples were exhausted, and yet they're getting something out of it. We find ourselves in our daily grind being exhausted. But when you reflect on it, we'll get something out of things. We are realizing that we are a part of a bigger reality than our own. That we are called as children of God to try to climb as much as we can. Not for the sake of, I want to be on top of the mountain all the time and this is the peak. It's to get on the mountain so that we can reassess our realities and find out what is really going on in the world. That is the reason for the mountaintop. To get a fresh view, a fresh perspective. When you go on vacation, you kind of back away from work a while, and sometimes you walk through the woods or along the beach or where have you, and you get a sense of peace, you get a sense of renewal, you get a sense of this is a step back so you can kind of gauge what you want to do and what is important to you. And the thing about this, if you read it, in the earlier with Exodus and Moses on the mountain, the people weren't allowed to even come close to the mountain, otherwise they'd die. Don't even let them near. Moses is the only one to go up and down the mountain and be part of God. In this presence, you'll find that Peter, James, and John entered the cloud and weren't destroyed, weren't killed. They were invited. They were invited into this cloud. God gave them the space to be in His presence. I believe that God gives us all space to be in God's presence so that we can be filled with the Spirit. We can be renewed. We can have a sense of what is real in this world. The love that we have for each other. The love that God has for us. A sense of peace that only God can provide for us. So in this transfiguration, we find there's change in Jesus, and there's a change in the disciples, and there seems to be hopefully a change in us as we go through our Christian lives too. That God is always instituting these transfigurations, not major like we saw Jesus or Moses, but small things in our lives that we can hold on to and remember. God is acting throughout our lives as God was acting then and before then and before then. But God is always acting. And the thing that we tell the kids in confirmation, always remember this, that God always keeps God's promises. If you forget everything else, remember that. God has promised us wonderful things. And God continues to give us life and light. Amen.